And as this breaking news develops, we turn to our panel now. Brent Sadler, retired captain with the U.S. Navy, as well as former U.S. military diplomat in Asia. And we also want to bring in Jamil Jaffer, former associate counsel to President George W. Bush, former chief counsel to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Thank you both. Welcome, and we appreciate you joining us tonight. And I do want to ask both of you about this developing situation, and not just the 85 targets in Iraq and Syria. Now tonight, we see the U.S. launching more attacks against Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. Jamil, we'll start with you. We know the Houthis already responding. They're saying we will meet escalation with escalation. What is your read on the situation tonight and the success of Biden's actions so far?
Well, I think, look, the goal is to deter further actions by the Houthis, by the Iran-backed militias in Iraq and Syria, and so far it hasn't succeeded. We've been going after the Houthis now for weeks in the Red Sea. They've continued to attack U.S. warships and commercial shipping. The reality is, for both these groups, if you're going to stop them, you've got to make Iran, which backs them, feel the pain. We haven't done that yet. Until that happens, I predict the attacks both in the Red Sea and against American soldiers in Iraq and Syria will continue.
Brent, do you agree? Do you feel that Iran has not felt the pain yet of this?
No, absolutely. And I think that's clear by the persistence of these attacks throughout Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and, of course, Hezbollah across into Israel's northern border. So they haven't borne enough of a punishment or a threat to make them pull back.
That's interesting. Jamil, do you think that the U.S. should have launched retaliatory strikes in Iran directly? Is that what you're saying?
I think there's no question that we've got to hit Iranian leadership. Now, in the Trump administration, President Trump was able to take out Qasem Soleimani, the leader of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's Quds Force, while he was in Iraq. But I think at the end of the day, until you make Iran feel sustained pain, whether that's in Iran or elsewhere, they are not going to cut these attacks out. Going after their proxies, whether it's the Houthis in Yemen or any of these groups, Ansar al-Haq of Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq and Syria, it's just not going to work. Because at the end of the day, the Iranian money continues to flow, the Iranian weapons continue to flow, and they continue to have a desire to kill Americans and attack all sorts of allied vessels around the globe.
Brent, I see you nodding here. Do you think that the U.S. needed to carry out strikes within Iran itself? It's not enough just to target its proxies.
No, I think at this point, at this juncture, I think it would be counterproductive to launch strikes into Iran. It would actually work against our longer-term interest and escalate things at a time that we don't need that. In the months leading up to the October 7th attack by Hamas, Iran was suffering, several large protests and a lot of unrest from several minority groups. And this is a long simmering problem, and the regime is definitely feeling pressure. Attacking them in a very overt military way by launching strikes into Iran would rally them to the flag, and that's not to our interest. Better to go after, and using the Soleimani case as a test, as an example, is to go after the Quds Force as they are maneuvering around throughout the region. They're the facilitators. They're the people that know the network, and they're the ones connecting money and munitions with the militias that are attacking the United States as well as our partners throughout the region. Taking them out on the field, that's going to have an effect. We saw it when we took out Soleimani. We had quite a long period of quiet.
I appreciate that. Jamil, I want to ask you about timeline while we have you both. We just heard Alina Shirazi highlighting Republicans saying that the strikes were too slow, that it gave Iran and their proxies the time to mobilize. Do you agree with that?
I worry less about the timeline and more the fact that we alerted the Iraqi government to the fact of these attacks. The Iraqi government, in part, has some responsibilities. Some of these militias that we're talking about are actually under the control of the Iraqi Ministry of Defense. So the idea that we're giving them a heads up, to me, is ridiculous. I do think the timeline was probably fine. It could have been tighter, but I'm not really that focused on that. What I'm focused on now is, what are the next strikes going to look like? When are we going to do those? And to Brett's point, when are we going to hit the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's Quds Force, wherever they are in the region, and make Iran feel some direct pain for the deaths of these 3 Americans in Jordan?
Yeah. Brent, do you agree with the Republicans who say that this should have happened sooner? What is on your mind tonight?
Well, no, for quite a long time, I've been concerned that there weren't adequate operational planning and preparation put in place so that when this actually happened, we knew that after 166 attacks, it was only a matter of time before American blood was going to be spilled. But the fact that it took days, almost an entire week, before there was an adequate response, I don't think trying to inform through diplomatic channels is reason enough for that long of a delay. And it only played to the Iranians and their proxies. So I think though it's still a little early, I think the effectiveness of these attacks were greatly jeopardized and undermined by giving such a long warning, and in some cases, very specific announcement of bombers taking off and heading to the Middle East.
Okay, I appreciate that context. And, Jamil, I think it's also interesting that 2 days ago, the group that attacked Tower 22 was admonished by Iran for going too far. Is there a divide between Iran and its proxies, and should that be exploited by the U.S.?
I don't think so. I think this is Iran simply covering for themselves. The reality is they're feeling a little bit of the pressure. They should feel more pressure. But the fact of the matter is they've been doing this for weeks and months. And, as Brett points out, 166 attacks since October 7th alone. That doesn't even include the hundreds of attacks that have taken place over years by Iran. Brett's exactly right. It was only a matter of time until Americans got killed. Iran bears full responsibility for this, and they should bear the price. There's no division between them and their proxy groups.
All right, Brent and Jamil, appreciate both of your expertise and time tonight. Thank you so much.